Welcome, dear listener, to a long and winding journey through the shadowed corners of the wizarding world, a place where whispers carry secrets, and the name Lord Voldemort lingers like a chill in the air. Over the next many hours, we'll unravel the deepest, darkest lore of the Dark Lord himself, his beginnings, his ascent to power, his most sinister creations, and the quiet end that closed his reign. This is a tale woven for the night, a soothing narrative to carry you gently into sleep as we explore the life of a wizard who feared death above all else. Otsar. We'll begin with a boy named Tom Riddle, born into a world that didn't want him, and trace his path as he became the most feared figure in magical history. We'll wander the halls of Hogwarts where his ambitions took root, linger in the hidden places where his Horcruxes waited, and stand amidst the loyalty and terror of his Death Eaters. And at last, we'll witness his fall, a moment that reshaped the wizarding world forever. So, find a comfortable place, let the gentle rhythm of this story wash over you, and allow the tale of Lord Voldemort to guide you into a deep, restful slumber. The night is ours, and the secrets are endless. Let's start at the very beginning. Introduction: Unveiling Voldemort's darkest lore. Lord Voldemort. He who must not be named the Dark Lord, a name that even now sends a shiver through the bravest hearts. To speak it aloud was once to invite fear, a fear so profound that it outlasted his defeat. But who was he beneath the shadow? How did a child, born of a broken union, rise to wield power unmatched in the annals of magic? What drove him to chase immortality with such relentless hunger? And how did his choices ripple through the lives of so many? To know Voldemort, we must first step into the world that shaped him. A wizarding society of the early 20th century, teetering between tradition and change. Purebloods held their lineage like a badge of honor, while Muggleborns fought for a place among them. It was a time of hidden tensions, of ancient magic stirring beneath the surface. And into this fragile balance came a boy named Tom Marvolo Riddle. This is not just a story of evil, though evil it contains. It's a tale of choices, each one a step deeper into darkness, and of a soul so fractured by fear that it sought to defy the natural order. It's a journey through power and loss, ambition and ruin, told in a voice soft enough to lull you into dreams. We'll uncover secrets rarely spoken, the hidden depths of his Horcruxes, the extent of his magical mastery, and the fleeting moments where fate might have turned another way. As the hours stretch before us, let the night embrace you, and let's begin with the boy who would become the Dark Lord. A birth shrouded in shadows. Our tale opens on a cold winter's night, December 31st, 1926. In a gray, unwelcoming building known as Wool's Orphanage, nestled in the heart of London. It was here, amid the clamor of unwanted children, that Tom Marvolo Riddle drew his first breath. But this was no ordinary birth, nor was it one warmed by love. His mother, Maripe Gaunt, was a witch from a lineage as ancient as it was decayed. The Gaunts, heirs to Salazar Slytherin, one of Hogwarts' 4 founders. His father, Tom Riddle Sr., was a Muggle, a wealthy man from the village of Little Hangleton, untouched by magic until fate, or something darker, drew him in. Maripe's life had been a quiet tragedy. Raised in a crumbling shack by her father, Marvolo, a man consumed by pride and cruelty, and her brother, Morphin, whose mind was as twisted as his wand, she lived in the shadow of their obsession with blood purity. Her magic was weak, stifled by years of fear, but her heart held one desperate wish: escape. She found it, or so she thought, in Tom Riddle Sr., a man whose charm and indifference captivated her. Through a love potion, perhaps the only spell she ever truly mastered, she bound him to her, and they fled together to London, where she conceived a child. But potions cannot weave true affection. When Maripe, perhaps in hope or delusion, ceased the enchantment, Tom Sr. awoke from his trance and fled, leaving her alone, pregnant and destitute. She stumbled to the orphanage, her strength fading, and there, on that New Year's Eve, she gave birth. With her final breaths, she named her son, Tom, for the father who rejected him, Marvolo, for the family that had broken her, and Riddle, a tether to a past she couldn't escape. Then she slipped away, leaving her child to a world that offered no warmth. So began the life of Tom Riddle, a boy born of deceit, abandonment, and a heritage steeped in shadow. Even in his earliest moments, the threads of his destiny were already weaving a dark tapestry. Picture that infant now, lying in a plain crib, the dim light of the orphanage casting faint shadows across his face. He's alone, unknowing of the power within him or the legacy that awaits. It's a quiet, haunting scene, one that whispers of what might have been and what was yet to come. The orphanage years, shadows of power. The years that followed were cold and solitary. Wool's orphanage was a place of hard floors and thin blankets, where children learned early that kindness was rare. But Tom was not like the others. From a young age, he sensed something within him, something extraordinary. Objects moved when he willed them to, bending to his silent commands. Small animals obeyed him, their eyes wide with fear or awe. And those who crossed him, bullies or rivals, found themselves struck by sudden, inexplicable misfortune. By 7, Tom understood he was different. He could make things happen, make them shift, make them break. He tested this power on the other children, not out of playfulness, but to dominate. He'd sit in the yard, his dark eyes watching as a toy floated just out of reach, or as a boy who'd taunted him tripped and fell without cause. The staff noticed, whispering of his strangeness, but Tom was clever, too clever to be caught. One summer, during an outing to the coast, his darkness surfaced more clearly. He lured 2 children, Amy Benson and Dennis Bishop, into a cave by the sea. What happened there remains a mystery, for they returned pale and silent, refusing to speak of it. The matron suspected Tom, but proof slipped through her grasp like mist. He had a way of bending the world to his will, even then. Yet, beneath this control lay a hollow ache. Tom had no companions, no family to claim him. He saw himself as a part, above, a belief that grew into a quiet arrogance. He began to collect trophies from those he'd frightened or bested. A yo-yo, a harmonica, small trinkets stashed in a box under his bed. They were proof of his superiority, tokens of a power he didn't yet name. Death, too, crept into his thoughts during these years. He saw it in the sickly children who didn't survive the orphanage winters, in the stillness of a bird he'd commanded too harshly. It fascinated him, not with dread, but with a need to defy it. "I won't let it take me," he'd whispered to himself in the dark. That vow, born in a child's mind, would echo through his life, driving him toward the abyss. Imagine young Tom now, alone in his narrow room, his small hands clutching a stolen trinket as he stares into the night. "I will never die," he murmurs, a promise to himself that carries the weight of fate. It's a moment that lingers, soft and chilling, as the shadows deepen around him. Dumbledore's visit. A door opens. In the summer of 1938, when Tom was 11, a stranger came to the orphanage, a man who would alter his path forever. Albus Dumbledore stepped into that gray world, his auburn beard catching the light, his blue eyes sharp yet kind. He introduced himself as a professor from Hogwarts, a school for those with gifts like Tom's. For the first time, Tom heard the word wizard, and it fit him like a key sliding into a lock. But he didn't greet this news with wonder. Instead, he met it with a cold, assessing gaze. "I knew I was special," he told Dumbledore, his voice steady. He spoke of his abilities, how he could move things without touching them, how he could speak to snakes and hear their replies. This gift, Parseltongue, marked him as Slytherin's heir, though he didn't yet know its full meaning. He showed no shame for the fear he'd sown, only pride in his strength. Tss. Dumbledore watched him closely, seeing the spark of brilliance and the shadow of something darker. He spoke gently, warning Tom that Hogwarts was a place of rules, that magic could heal as well as harm. But Tom's mind was already racing, envisioning a world where his power could grow unbound. Before parting, Dumbledore revealed a glimpse of his own magic, setting Tom's wardrobe alight to retrieve the stolen treasures hidden within. The flames danced briefly, then vanished, leaving Tom staring in awe and calculation. And then end. That day, Tom left the orphanage behind, stepping into a future he intended to shape. The fire's glow lingered in his memory, a symbol of what he could become. See him now, standing amid the ashes of that moment, his face lit by the embers, ambition flickering in his eyes. It's a quiet turning point, the first step toward the name he'd one day claim. Hogwarts, the Seeds of Darkness. In September 1938, Tom Riddle arrived at Hogwarts, his sorting into Slytherin as inevitable as night following day. He was a prodigy, charming, brilliant, a student who dazzled his professors with ease. Yet, beneath this facade, he sought more than praise. He delved into the library's restricted tomes, tracing his lineage to Salazar Slytherin and uncovering the bitter truth of his Muggle father's rejection. That betrayal hardened his disdain for Muggles and their kin, a seed of hatred that would bloom in time. He gathered followers, students drawn to his quiet charisma and the promise of greatness. Names like Avery and Lestrange whispered around him, the beginnings of what would become the Death Eaters. In his 5th year, he turned to the Chamber of Secrets, a legend he proved real. Unlocking it in 1943, he unleashed the basilisk, its gaze petrifying students until it claimed Myrtle Warren's life. He framed Hagrid, earning trust while hiding his guilt. But his true quest had already begun. In the depths of Hogwarts, he discovered Horcruxes, vessels for a torn soul, a path to immortality. The idea seized him, and he resolved to create not one, but many, ensuring no force could end him. That year, he took his first step, crafting a Horcrux from Myrtle's death, the diary that would one day whisper his name. Envision Tom now, alone in a shadowed hall, his wand trembling as he speaks words no child should know. It's the birth of Voldemort, a name yet unspoken, but alive in his fractured soul. This is just the beginning, dear listener. The tale of Voldemort stretches far ahead, a journey through darkness and power that will unfold over hours. For now, rest here, with young Tom's story settling around you like a soft blanket. As we continue our journey, we step into the years when Tom Riddle shed his name and became the Dark Lord, a transformation as slow as it was inevitable. These are the years of his rise, a time when he wandered the world, seeking power in forgotten places, mastering magic that few dared to touch. He gathered followers, whispered promises of greatness, and laid the foundations for a reign of terror that would shake the wizarding world to its core. So, settle deeper into your blankets, let the night wrap around you, and let's follow the path of a wizard who sought to conquer death itself. Leaving Hogwarts, a journey into darkness. In June 1945, Tom Riddle stepped out of Hogwarts for the final time. His Newt exams were behind him, completed with a brilliance that left professors in awe. To the outside world, he was the perfect student, head boy, charming, and destined for greatness. But beneath this polished exterior, his mind was a cauldron of ambition. He had already created his first Horcrux, the diary, a dark secret hidden within the pages of his past. His obsession with immortality had taken root, and he knew that Hogwarts, for all its wonders, could no longer contain him. His first act as a free wizard was bold. He applied for the Defense Against the Dark Arts position at Hogwarts. It wasn't the desire to teach that drove him, but the castle itself, with its hidden chambers and ancient secrets. Albus Dumbledore, now deputy headmaster, saw through the facade. He sensed the shadow growing within Tom and quietly ensured the request was denied, advising Headmaster Dippet against it. Tom left the meeting with a tight smile, his eyes glinting with something cold and unreadable. It was a rejection he would not forget, nor forgive. With Hogwarts closed to him, he turned to a darker path. He took a job at Borgin and Burke's, a shop nestled in the twisting gloom of Nocturne Alley. There, surrounded by cursed artifacts and whispered rumors, he thrived. His charm disarmed wealthy clients, while his sharp mind cataloged every hint of forbidden magic. He was hunting for relics tied to the Hogwarts founders, objects he could bend to his will as Horcruxes. It was during this time that he met Hepzibah Smith, an elderly collector with a hoard of treasures. Hepzibah, delighted by Tom's flattery, revealed two priceless heirlooms, Salazar Slytherin's locket and Helga Hufflepuff's cup. His fingers lingered over the locket, a hunger flashing in his eyes. 2 days later, Hepzibah was found dead, her house elf blamed for a tragic mistake with poisoned cocoa. Tom was gone, the locket and cup vanishing with him. He left Borgin and Burke's behind, stepping into a wider world where his ambitions could unfurl unchecked. Picture him now, moving through the shadows of Nocturne Alley, the stolen relics heavy in his cloak. His steps are quiet, deliberate, as he leaves behind the boy he once was. This is the moment Tom Riddle begins to fade, and something far darker takes his place. Travels across the world, mastering the forbidden. For the next 10 years, Tom Riddle vanished from the wizarding world's sight. He became a wanderer, tracing paths through forgotten lands, Albania's haunted forests, Tibet's secluded mountains, Egypt's ancient tombs. He sought out magic that had been buried, shunned, or feared, learning from those who lived on the edges of existence, dark wizards, reclusive hermits, and creatures that spoke in riddles. In Albania, he immersed himself in the lore of soul magic, studying the primal rites that had birthed the concept of Horcruxes. He perfected the process, splitting his soul again with the murder of his uncle Morphin, turning the Gaunt family ring into his second Horcrux. The ring stone, said to summon the dead, was a grim echo of his quest. In Tibet, he sought out monks who could bend life itself, their rituals slow and meditative. He grew impatient with their philosophy, but stole their techniques, leaving their sanctuaries empty. In Egypt, he walked among the tombs of pharaohs, calling forth their shades with spells lost to time. They spoke of power beyond death, but also of consequences. Warnings he ignored. He took their necromantic secrets and left the sands colder than he found them. Each journey sharpened his skill. Each lesson brought him closer to the abyss. It was during these travels that he cast off his old name. Tom Riddle carried the stain of his Muggle father, a tether to a past he despised. From the letters of his birth name, he forged a new one. I am Lord Voldemort. It was a title that rolled off the tongue like a curse, a name he tested in the dark corners he visited, watching as it chilled the air. Well, imagine him now, standing atop a ruined temple under a vast, starlit sky. I am Lord Voldemort, he murmurs, and the night seems to hold its breath. It's a quiet rebirth, a shedding of skin, as he steps fully into the shadow he was always meant to become. Gathering followers, the birth of the Death Eaters. By the late 1950s, Voldemort returned to Britain, transformed. His features were sharper, his eyes burned with an unearthly light, and his presence carried a weight that silenced rooms. He began to draw followers, wizards and witches captivated by his power and his vision. At first they called themselves the Knights of Walpurgis, a nod to ancient magic, but soon they would take a name that echoed their purpose, the Death Eaters. His earliest recruits were familiar faces from Hogwarts, Abraxas Malfoy, Antonin Dolohov, and others from pure-blood lines. They saw him as a savior of their traditions, a leader who would cleanse the wizarding world of Muggle taint. He offered them power, prestige, and a seat at his table, though his true aim remained his alone: immortality. They were pieces on his board, moved with precision. He bound them with the dark mark, a skull with a serpent threading through it, etched into their arms. It was a badge of allegiance, but also a chain. Through it he could call them, punish them, or sense their disloyalty. The mark was his signature, a quiet promise of control. His influence grew in the shadows. Disappearances multiplied, curses lingered in the air, and fear took root. The Ministry, still reeling from Grindelwald's defeat, was blind to the threat until it was too late. Voldemort's followers slipped into its ranks, their loyalty sworn to him alone. Envision a hidden chamber now, torchlight casting long shadows as cloaked figures kneel. "We serve only you, my lord," they whisper, their voices a low, unified chant. It's a moment of stillness, but one heavy with the promise of chaos to come. The First Wizarding War, a reign of terror, begins. In the early 1970s, Voldemort's quiet machinations burst into the open. The First Wizarding War began, a tide of terror that swept through Britain. The dark mark appeared in the sky, a green omen of death, as villages fell silent and families vanished. The wizarding world locked its doors, its hope dimming with each passing night. Voldemort's Death Eaters struck with ruthless efficiency. They hunted Muggleborns and those who defied their master, their masks concealing their faces, their curses cutting through the dark. The unforgivable curses became their tools: control, pain, and death delivered with cold precision. Voldemort himself remained aloof, a specter directing the carnage from afar, his hands rarely stained with blood. He sowed discord with a master's touch, turning friends against each other, planting spies within the Ministry. The Order of the Phoenix, formed by Dumbledore, stood against him. A small, fierce light in the growing dark. Their battles were hidden, fought in alleyways and homes, a war of whispers and wands. See it now, a quiet village under a moonlit sky, shattered by a flash of green. The dark mark twists above, a silent threat. Somewhere, a door trembles, and the night holds its breath. The Prophecy, a turning point. In 1980, a prophecy emerged to shift the tide. Sybil Trelawney, lost in a trance, spoke of a child born at the end of July to parents who had defied Voldemort thrice, a child with the power to vanquish him. Severus Snape, a Death Eater, overheard and carried the words to his master. Voldemort fixed his gaze on Harry Potter, born to Lily and James, seeing him as the threat. Ned is... What? On October 31st, 1981, he came to Godric's Hollow. James fell first, then Lily, who died shielding her son. Her love wove a protection Voldemort couldn't pierce. When he cast the killing curse on Harry, it rebounded, ripping his soul from his body. He fled as a wraith, his empire crumbling, his followers fleeing into the night. The wizarding world breathed again, believing him finished. But in Albania's depths, a fragment of him endured. Imagine that night, the cottage in ruins, a child's cry rising from the wreckage, and a shadow slipping into the dark. It's an end, but not the end. A pause in a tale still unfolding. What? As the night wraps its gentle arms around us, we step deeper into the heart of his darkest ambition, the Horcruxes. These are not mere objects, but fragments of a soul torn apart, hidden within vessels of power, memory, and pride. They are the anchors that tethered him to life, defying the natural order in a desperate bid for immortality. In this, the third part of our journey, we'll wander through the stories of these 7 relics, 6 crafted by intent, 1 born of accident, unveiling their origins, their secrets, and the quiet tragedies woven into their existence. So, settle into the stillness, let your breath slow, and allow the tale to unfold before you like a dream half remembered. Introduction to Horcruxes, the Darkest of Magics. Before we touch the objects themselves, let us linger for a while on the nature of a Horcrux, what it is, how it comes to be, and why it held such allure for the wizard once known as Tom Marvolo Riddle. A Horcrux is no ordinary creation. It is the pinnacle of dark magic, a vessel, be it a ring, a book, or even a living being, that cradles a piece of a fractured soul. To possess one is to cheat death itself, to ensure that even if the body perishes, a part of you endures, tethered to the world by an unnatural thread. The process is as intricate as it is profane. It begins with murder, a deliberate act that rends the soul, splitting it like fabric torn by a careless hand. But the killing is only the first step. What follows is a ritual so shrouded in shadow that even the most daring texts, like * Secrets of the Darkest Art, *, a tome hidden in the depths of Hogwarts' restricted section, speak of it only in hushed, cryptic tones. The wizard must draw the severed fragment from within, coaxing it into the chosen object with incantations older than the wizarding world itself. It is a moment of agony and triumph, a pact with darkness that leaves the creator forever changed. For Tom Riddle, the idea of Horcruxes was not just a curiosity, it was an obsession. He discovered their existence as a student, poring over forbidden books in the flickering candlelight of the Slytherin common room, the lake's gentle ripples reflecting through the windows. Death, to him, was not a natural end, but an enemy to be vanquished. Born of a Muggle father he despised, and a witch mother who died in weakness, he saw mortality as a flaw to be overcome. Horcruxes promised him eternity, a way to rise above the frail humanity he loathed. He resolved to create not one, but 7, believing the number, sacred in magical lore, would amplify his power beyond imagining. 6 he would craft with purpose, choosing objects that reflected his vanity and his past. The 7th would come by chance, a twist of fate he never intended. Each Horcrux was a monument to his brilliance, hidden in places tied to his life. Hogwarts, his ancestral home, a cave by the sea, protected by spells and traps no ordinary wizard could unravel. Yet, there was a cost he did not fully foresee. With each Horcrux, he shed a piece of his humanity. His eyes grew colder, his features sharper, his voice a hiss that chilled the air. He became less a man and more a specter, a being sustained by magic rather than life. The Horcruxes were his strength, but also his unraveling, a paradox we'll explore as we drift through their stories. Imagine now a cavernous library, its shelves heavy with ancient volumes, the air thick with dust and secrets. A boy sits alone, his dark hair falling over his brow, his quill scratching furiously as the night deepens. It's here that our tale takes root, in the mind of a young Tom Riddle, dreaming of a life unbound by death. Let us now turn to the first of his creations, a simple diary and the shadowed legacy it holds. The diary, a whisper from the past. The first Horcrux Voldemort forged was unassuming, a diary small enough to fit in the palm of your hand, its black leather cover worn smooth by time, its pages crisp and faintly scented with ink. It was not a relic of great wizards or a treasure of untold value, but a common thing purchased from a Muggle shop on Vauxhall Road during his 5th year at Hogwarts. To the untrained eye, it was nothing special, but to Tom Riddle, it was a vessel of immense potential, a blank slate upon which he would etch his first claim to immortality. The object and its history. Picture the diary now, resting on a wooden desk in the Slytherin dormitory, the green glow of the lake filtering through the window panes. Its leather was soft, almost velvety, with a faint embossed pattern along the spine, perhaps a remnant of its modest origins. The pages, numbering exactly 100, were unlined, inviting the free flow of thought. Tom chose it deliberately, not for its grandeur, but for what it symbolized: his school days, the years when he began to unravel the mysteries of magic and assert his dominance over peers and professors alike. He wrote in it with care, his handwriting sharp and elegant, each letter a testament to his precision. The early entries were mundane, notes on transfiguration lessons, observations of the Hogwarts grounds in autumn, when the leaves turned gold and crimson against the gray stone. But as the months passed, the tone shifted. The diary became a repository for his secrets, his discovery of his parcel tongue ability, his lineage as Salazar Slytherin's heir, and his growing contempt for those he deemed beneath him. It was here, too, that he first played with the letters of his name, rearranging Tom Marvolo Riddle into the chilling declaration, "I am Lord Voldemort." The diary was more than a record. It was a mirror reflecting the boy he was and the Dark Lord he would become. When he decided to make it his first Horcrux, he saw it as a fitting tribute to those formative years, a way to preserve the brilliance of his 16-year-old self for eternity. How Voldemort obtained it. The diary's acquisition was a small act, almost trivial in its simplicity. During a rare trip to London in the summer of 1942, Tom wandered the bustling streets near Diagon Alley, his school robes traded for a plain Muggle coat to blend in. He slipped into a dimly lit stationery shop, its windows fogged with the breath of the city. The diary caught his eye on a cluttered shelf, its price a mere shilling, a pittance for the heir of Slytherin, even with his orphanage upbringing. He paid with coins he'd charmed from a passerby, a smirk tugging at his lips as he tucked the diary into his pocket. It was a quiet theft, unnoticed, and the shopkeeper never knew he'd handed a future dark artifact to a boy with shadows in his eyes. Back at Hogwarts, the diary became his constant companion, carried in his satchel alongside Asterisk. Advanced potion-making Asterisk and his wand. It was a private thing, never shown to others, not even to his earliest followers, the precursors to the Death Eaters. It was his alone, until the day it would hold something far greater than words. The murder of Moaning Myrtle. To create a Horcrux, a soul must be split, and for that, a life must be taken. Tom chose his moment with chilling calculation. In June of 1943, as his 5th year drew to a close, he opened the Chamber of Secrets, a hidden sanctum beneath Hogwarts he'd discovered through his Parseltongue gift. The chamber was a marvel, its stone walls damp and moss-covered, its air heavy with the scent of earth and ancient magic. At its center loomed the statue of Salazar Slytherin, its bearded face gazing down with silent approval. Tom summoned the basilisk, the great serpent that had slumbered within the chamber for centuries. Its scales shimmered like emeralds in the torchlight, its eyes a deadly yellow that could kill with a glance. He spoke to it in hissing tones, guiding it through the school's pipes, its movements a whisper beneath the floors. For weeks, it struck fear into Hogwarts, petrifying students, Muggleborns, those Tom despised most, until it found its true victim. Myrtle Warren was a Ravenclaw, a lonely girl with thick glasses and a tendency to cry at the slightest provocation. She was in the first-floor girls' bathroom, her sobs echoing off the tiled walls, when the basilisk emerged from the sink. Tom had directed it there, knowing her habits, her isolation. She looked up, startled by a sound, and met the serpent's gaze. Her death was instantaneous, her body crumpled to the floor, her eyes wide and lifeless, her last cry silenced forever. The school descended into panic. Parents threatened to withdraw their children. Whispers of closure spread, and Tom watched it all with a quiet thrill. He covered his tracks masterfully, blaming Rubeus Hagrid, a third year with a fondness for monstrous creatures. Hagrid's acromantula, Aragog, took the fall, and Tom was lauded for exposing the culprit. The headmaster, Armando Dippet, closed the chamber's entrance, and life at Hogwarts resumed. None suspecting the true orchestrator sat among them, his diary now a ticking bomb. See that bathroom now in your mind's eye. The cold tiles, the rusted faucets, the air thick with sorrow. A girl's voice fades, and in its place rises a silence that carries the weight of what's to come. It's a moment of loss and of dark beginnings, hiding the diary. With the Horcrux created, Tom kept the diary close through his remaining years at Hogwarts, its presence a secret comfort as he honed his skills and gathered followers. After graduating in 1945, he took it with him into the world, carrying it through his travels, first to Borgin and Berks, where he charmed relics from unwitting witches, then to Albania, where he sought deeper magics. It rested in his trunk, its pages now silent, waiting for its purpose to unfold. Years later, as Lord Voldemort, he entrusted it to Lucius Malfoy, a Death Eater whose pure blood fervor matched his own. This was in the early 1970s, during the height of the First Wizarding War. Lucius was to guard it, to keep it safe until Voldemort deemed it time to wield its power. The diary's enchantment allowed it to possess those who wrote in it, and Voldemort intended it to reopen the chamber, purging Hogwarts once more. He gave Lucius no hint of its true nature, only that it was precious and dangerous. Lucius, however, faltered. After Voldemort's fall in 1981, with the Dark Lord presumed dead, the diary became a liability. In 1992, under pressure from Ministry raids targeting dark artifacts, Lucius saw a chance to rid himself of it. He slipped it into Ginny Weasley's cauldron during a trip to Diagon Alley, hoping to implicate her father, Arthur Weasley, a thorn in the side of pure-blood elites. He underestimated its power and the chaos it would unleash. The destruction of the diary. The diary's second life began when Ginny, an 11-year-old Gryffindor, found it among her school books. She wrote in it, innocently at first, pouring out her fears, her homesickness, her awe at Hogwarts. The fragment of Tom Riddle within responded, his words appearing in elegant script, offering sympathy, flattery, and subtle manipulation. He was 16 again, charming and cruel, feeding on her vulnerability. As weeks passed, Ginny's entries grew frantic. She blacked out, waking with paint on her hands or feathers in her hair, no memory of her actions. The diary was possessing her, draining her life to strengthen itself. Under its control, she opened the Chamber of Secrets, released the basilisk, and painted warnings in rooster blood on the castle walls. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. Students were petrified. Colin Creevey, Justin Finch Fletchley, Hermione Granger, and Hogwarts teetered on the edge of ruin once more. Whilst Harry Potter, then in his second year, unraveled the mystery with help from Hermione's research and Ron's loyalty. Guided by the diary's taunts and a trail of clues, he descended into the chamber, finding Ginny near death, her life nearly consumed. The memory of Tom Riddle emerged from the diary, a spectral figure growing solid, his eyes glinting with malice. He summoned the basilisk to kill Harry, but fate intervened. Fawkes, Dumbledore's phoenix, blinded the serpent, and Harry wielded its fang as a weapon. In a final, desperate act, Harry plunged the fang into the diary's heart. Ink poured from the wound like blood, black and thick, staining the stone floor. Riddle's form screamed, a sound that echoed through the chamber, then dissolved into mist. The diary was destroyed, its Horcrux extinguished, and Ginny awoke, trembling but alive. Envision that instant, the fang piercing the leather, the ink spilling like a river. A boy's voice lost to the wind. It's a quiet triumph, a flicker of light in the dark, and the end of the first fragment's tale. Symbolism and reflections. The diary was more than a Horcrux. It was a time capsule, preserving Tom Riddle at the height of his youth. It symbolized his beginnings, his first steps into darkness, and his belief that he could control the world through intellect and cunning. Its destruction by Harry, a boy tied to him by fate, foreshadowed the greater battle to come, a poetic symmetry Voldemort never anticipated. Interlude, Reflections on Youth and Ambition. Let us pause now, as the echo of the diary fades, to drift into Tom Riddle's mind at 16. The diary was his first triumph, a testament to the ambition that burned within him. Hogwarts was his kingdom then, its halls a stage for his brilliance. He was prefect, top of his class, admired by teachers and feared by peers, yet beneath it all lay a restless hunger to be more, to be eternal. In those days, he stood at a crossroads. The boy who wrote in that diary could have chosen another path, could have been a scholar, a leader, a name revered rather than reviled, but the lure of power, the fear of oblivion, pulled him deeper into shadow. The diary's creation was his point of no return, a vow to never bow to mortality. See him now, alone in the chamber, the basilisk coiled at his feet, the diary warm in his hands. The torchlight dances on the stone, and for a moment he feels invincible. But there's a tremor in his chest, a whisper of doubt, or perhaps pride too vast to contain. It's a fleeting image, lost to time, but it lingers in the story we tell. The Ring, a legacy in stone. From the diary's quiet end, we turn to the second Horcrux, a ring ancient and heavy with history, its black stone etched with a symbol few would recognize. This was no ordinary trinket, but Marvolo Gaunt's ring, an heirloom of Voldemort's maternal line, and within it, a secret even he did not fully grasp, the Resurrection Stone, one of the Deathly Hallows. The object and its history. The ring was a thing of stark beauty, its band wrought of gold dulled by centuries, its stone a deep, unpolished black that seemed to swallow light. Carved upon it was a triangle enclosing a circle and a line, the mark of the Hallows, though Tom saw it only as a family crest, the Peveril coat of arms. It had belonged to the Gaunts, descendants of Salazar Slytherin, a line reduced to squalor by the time Tom was born. His grandfather, Marvolo, wore it with fierce pride, flaunting it as proof of his pure blood supremacy, despite his poverty. The ring's history stretched back further to Cadmus Peveril, who, legend says, asked death for a stone to recall the dead. It passed through generations, its true power forgotten, until it rested on Marvolo's gnarled finger. When Marvolo died, it went to his daughter, Merope, Tom's mother, who pawned it in her desperation before her death. Tom traced it to Nocturne Alley years later, reclaiming it as his birthright. How Voldemort obtained it. In the summer of 1943, after his 5th year, Tom sought his family. He found the Gaunt shack in Little Hangleton, a crumbling hovel surrounded by nettles and despair. His uncle, Morphin, lived there, a bitter man steeped in madness and prejudice. Morphin revealed the ring's story, spitting tales of Marvolo's glory, and showed it to Tom, still on his finger, a taunt of their shared blood. Tom took it, not by force, but by guile. He stunned Morphin with a spell, slipped the ring free, and left his uncle dazed. It was a quiet theft, but the ring's weight in his palm felt like destiny. He wore it briefly, its cold metal a link to the heritage he both cherished and despised, before deciding its greater purpose. Message to jurors, the murder of his father and grandparents. The ring demanded a sacrifice, and Tom chose his paternal kin. That same night he walked to the Riddle House, a grand estate overlooking the village. His father, Tom Sr., lived there with his parents, oblivious to the son he'd abandoned. Tom knocked, and when the door opened, he struck, 3 killing curses in swift succession, green light flaring in the darkened hall. His father fell first, then his grandparents, their faces frozen in shock. He felt no remorse, only a cold satisfaction at erasing the Muggle taint from his lineage. He framed Morphin, planting false memories with a flick of his wand. Morphin confessed, laughing, and was sent to Azkaban, leaving Tom free. The murders split his soul once more, and in the Gaunt shack, he performed the ritual, binding the fragment to the ring stone. Tinim Tiras, hiding the ring. The ring was hidden in the shack, beneath a floorboard in a golden box, surrounded by curses and wards. Tom believed its obscurity was its shield. No one would seek a treasure in such a forsaken place. He added a final trap, a curse that would doom any wearer, a safeguard against theft. Word is the destruction of the ring. Decades later, Albus Dumbledore found it. In 1996, guided by memories and research, he entered the shack, dismantling the protections with skill honed over a century. He recognized the Resurrection Stone, and in a moment of weakness, yearning to see his lost family, he put it on. The curse struck, blackening his hand, a slow poison that would kill him within a year. Severus Snape contained it, but the damage was done. Dumbledore destroyed the Horcrux with the sword of Gryffindor, its blade imbued with basilisk venom, shattering the stone's power while preserving its hallow essence. Picture the ring now, its stone split, its gold twisted, resting in Dumbledore's palm as the night closes in. It's a relic of loss, of pride undone, and a step closer to the end. Symbolism and reflections. The ring was Voldemort's claim to legacy, a bridge to Slytherin and a rejection of his Muggle roots. Its curse mirrored his own self-destruction, a fitting irony for a man who sought to escape death but hastened his ruin. Interlude: Reflections on Family and Legacy. As the ring's tale settles, let us drift into Voldemort's thoughts on family. He took the ring to honor Slytherin, yet killed the Riddles to erase them. It was a paradox, craving lineage while despising its source. The Gaunts were his shame, the Riddles his scorn, and in the ring he sought to rewrite both into something eternal. Yet, in its hiding, he buried his past, as if to forget the boy he'd been. See him standing in the shack, the ring glinting in the moonlight, the bodies cold behind him. He feels powerful, untouchable, but alone, a king of shadows with no kin to claim. And sought, as the night wraps around us, we enter the heart of his most fearsome chapter, the reign of terror that clutched the wizarding world in the 1970s. These were years when fear was a living thing, a cold hand on every shoulder, when the dark mark blazed in the sky like a harbinger of doom, and when Voldemort's name was a curse too dreadful to speak aloud. In this, the fourth part of our journey, we'll wander through the winding paths of those who lived beneath his shadow, the families shattered by loss, the heroes who rose against the tide, and the battles that left scars upon the earth. So, find a quiet corner, let your breath deepen, and allow this tale to unfold before you, like a tapestry woven from whispers and dreams. Introduction to the First Wizarding War, A World on the Edge. Before we tread the cobblestone paths where terror took root, let us linger for a moment on the essence of the First Wizarding War. What it was, how it crept into being, and why it held the wizarding world in its grasp for over a decade. This was no war of clashing armies or fluttering banners, no grand spectacle of might. It was a war of shadows, of secrets murmured in darkened rooms, of curses that struck without sound or warning. It seeped into the fabric of magical life, unraveling trust, turning allies into enemies, and leaving behind a legacy of sorrow that would echo for generations. The roots of this conflict stretched back far beyond the first strike, twisting deep into the soil of a wizarding society already fractured by pride and prejudice. In the decades following the defeat of Gellert Grindelwald in 1945, the wizarding world had exhaled a collective sigh of relief. Peace, it seemed, had returned, but beneath the surface, old wounds festered. Pure-blood families, their lineage tracing back to the earliest days of magic, clung fiercely to their traditions, their belief in blood supremacy, a quiet ember waiting for a spark. Meanwhile, Muggle-borns and half-bloods, emboldened by a new era of openness, sought to claim their place in a world that had long excluded them. The Ministry of Magic, swollen with bureaucracy and lulled by complacency, turned a blind eye to the tension simmering in its midst. Into this brittle piece stepped Tom Marvolo Riddle, Lord Voldemort, as he would come to be known. A figure of paradox, he was both a product of the wizarding world's divisions and its most relentless destroyer. Born of a Muggle father and a witch mother, his hatred for his own mixed blood fueled a vision of purity that bordered on madness. After years abroad, honing his dark arts and gathering forbidden knowledge, he returned to Britain in the late 1960s, his presence a whisper on the wind. With a voice like silk and a will of iron, he drew followers to his side, disillusioned purebloods, ambitious outcasts, and those simply too afraid to resist. He promised them a world reborn, a realm where magic reigned supreme, where blood determined destiny, and where he would sit as its unchallenged sovereign. The war did not erupt with fanfare or proclamation. It slithered into existence, a creeping mist that thickened with each passing day. The first signs were small: a merchant gone missing from Diagon Alley, a strange shadow glimpsed in a forest glade, but they multiplied with chilling speed. By 1970, the disappearances numbered in the dozens, then the hundreds. Entire families vanished, their homes left untouched, save for the faint hum of residual magic. Above these scenes of silent horror, the dark mark appeared, a skull with a serpent coiling through its jaws, etched in green light against the night sky. It was a symbol of death, a calling card that needed no explanation. Fear took root, and with it, Voldemort's dominion deepened. For 11 long years, from 1970 to 1981, the wizarding world languished in this twilight of terror. The Ministry, first under the well-meaning but ineffectual Minister Eugenia Jenkins, and later under the stern Harold Mincham, floundered in its response. Aurors, the elite defenders of magical law, were dispatched in ever greater numbers, only to find themselves outmatched and outnumbered. The Order of the Phoenix, a clandestine resistance led by Albus Dumbledore, emerged as a flicker of hope, a band of brave souls willing to fight where others faltered. Their war was one of stealth and sacrifice, waged in hidden places, its victories unheralded, its losses mourned in silence. Imagine a sleepy hamlet now, its chimneys puffing smoke into a twilight sky. A green glow ignites above, casting jagged shadows across thatched roofs. The air grows still, heavy with unspoken dread. This is where our story begins, not with a bang, but with a shiver. The early whispers of fear, a slow descent. In those first years, the signs were faint, easily dismissed by a world reluctant to face another storm so soon after Grindelwald's fall. A farmer in Yorkshire found his livestock dead, their bodies unmarked save for a strange rigidity. A healer in St. Mungo's reported a patient babbling of masked figures before slipping into a coma. Then, in the autumn of 1970, came the first undeniable strike. Dorcas Meadows, a Muggle-born witch of modest means, disappeared from her cottage in Godric's Hollow. Days later, her body was discovered in a nearby field, her eyes wide with terror, the dark mark scorched into the grass beside her. The Ministry called it a tragedy, a lone act of malice. But those who knew the old tales, who remembered the whispers of a dark wizard rising, saw it for what it was, the opening note of a dirge. Voldemort's approach was deliberate, a predator stalking prey too dazed to flee. He eschewed grand assaults for subtle chaos, unraveling the wizarding world thread by thread. His Death Eaters, cloaked in anonymity, struck with surgical precision. They targeted the vulnerable Muggle-borns, whose magic was still new, purebloods who spoke out against prejudice, families with no means to defend themselves. The unforgivable curses became their signature, the imperious curse to enslave minds, the cruciatus curse to shatter bodies, the killing curse to snuff out lives in an instant of green light. Each attack was a message, a promise that no one was beyond reach. The wizarding public, still clinging to the illusion of safety, began to splinter. Some whispered allegiance to Voldemort in secret, hoping to spare themselves his wrath. Others, driven by greed or ideology, sought him out, pledging their wands to his cause. The ministry under Eugenia Jenkins launched a feeble campaign of reassurance, pamphlets urging calm, patrols that did little but stir unease. Aurors guarded key figures in towns, but the Death Eaters were phantoms, slipping through every net. Rumors swirled of spies within the ministry itself, trusted officials whose loyalty had been bought or cursed away. By 1972, the whispers had swelled into a chorus of alarm. The village of Tinworth, a coastal haven known for its quaint charm, became a graveyard overnight. An entire family of Muggle-born wizards, parents, children, even their owl, was found lifeless in their home, the dark mark shimmering above the cliffs. The ministry could no longer hide behind platitudes. Jenkins was forced out, replaced by Harold Mincham, a man of iron resolve who promised swift justice. He bolstered the Auror ranks, sanctioned the use of unforgivable curses against suspected Death Eaters, and ordered the expansion of Azkaban, its bleak towers rising higher to cage the growing tide of prisoners. Yet, for every mask torn away, another took its place. The war had begun in earnest, and its shadow stretched long. Picture a bustling market square now, its stalls draped in twilight hues. A witch pauses, her basket slipping from her grasp as she scans the faces around her. Friend or foe, she cannot tell. The air hums with suspicion, a melody of distrust that plays on every heartstring. The Death Eaters, shadows of devotion. At the core of Voldemort's reign stood his Death Eaters, the masked enforcers of his will. They were his army, his cult, bound to him by a mark burned into their forearms, a skull and serpent that pulsed with dark magic. To bear the dark mark was to surrender oneself utterly, to embrace both the ecstasy of power and the terror of servitude. Voldemort selected them with care, favoring those from venerable, pure-blood houses, Malfoys, Lestranges, Rosiers, whose lineage lent credence to his cause. Yet, he was pragmatic, welcoming exceptions like Severus Snape, a half-blood whose brilliance in potions and mastery of the mind's secrets proved too valuable to ignore. The Death Eaters operated in secrecy, their structure a labyrinth of cells known only to their master. They met in hidden places, crumbling manors, forgotten caves, forests where no light dared linger, their silver masks gleaming like specters in the gloom. Their voices, muffled and reverent, spoke of a new order, a cleansing of the impure. Voldemort rarely joined these gatherings, his presence a rare and electrifying gift. When he did appear, it was as if the air itself bent to his will. His robes flowed like liquid shadow, his red eyes burned with an unholy light, and his voice, soft, serpentine, inescapable, wove spells of awe and dread. A single glance could silence a room. A single command could end a life. Their devotion was a complex tapestry, woven from fear, ambition, and fanaticism. Voldemort demanded absolute loyalty, and he enforced it with a cruelty that knew no bounds. Failure was met with torment, the Cruciatus curse twisting limbs until screams became pleas, or with death, swift and final. Yet, for many, the rewards outweighed the risks. They saw in him a godlike figure, a harbinger of a world where they would reign supreme, where Muggles would kneel and Muggleborns would vanish. Bellatrix Lestrange, wild-eyed and fierce, embodied this zeal, her love for her master a flame that consumed all reason. Lucius Malfoy, cool and calculating, saw a path to power, his allegiance a means to an end. Together they formed a brotherhood of terror, their unity as fragile as it was fierce. Envision a cavern now, its walls slick with damp, its air thick with the scent of earth and ash. Figures in black encircle a flickering flame, their masks reflecting the light like mirrors of malice. For the Dark Lord, they intone, their words a vow and a warning. In the shadows he watches, unseen but ever present. The Battle of Diagon Alley, Chaos Unleashed. The war's first great clash came on a bright summer day in 1975, shattering the illusion of safety in Diagon Alley. The street was alive with color and sound, vendors hawking enchanted wares, children darting between shops, the clink of galleons changing hands. Then, in an instant, the air cracked with the sound of apparition. Death Eaters materialized, their masks stark against the sunlight, their wands slashing through the air. Spells erupted, jets of green, bursts of red, curses that tore through wood and stone. Screams pierced the clamor as shoppers fled, their baskets abandoned, their robes tangling in the chaos. The Aurors arrived within moments, led by Alistair Moody, a weathered warrior whose growl cut through the din. His magical eye whirled, tracking foes amidst the smoke, while his wand unleashed a barrage of counter-curses. "Hold the line!" he roared, his voice a lifeline for his team. The battle stretched across hours, a tempest of magic that left no corner untouched. Flourish and blots crumbled under a blasting curse, its books fluttering like wounded birds. The leaky cauldron's window shattered, glass raining onto the street below. A Death Eater's killing curse struck a young witch mid-flight, her body crumpling beside a toppled ice cream cart from Florian Fortescue's. When the smoke cleared, Diagon Alley was a ruin. Bodies littered the wreckage, Death Eaters felled by Moody's precision, civilians caught in the crossfire. The Aurors claimed a hollow victory, having captured 3 of the attackers, but the cost was steep. The Ministry hailed it as a stand against darkness, but the people saw only devastation. The war had breached their sanctum, and its echoes would linger in every cracked cobblestone. See Diagon Alley now, its vibrancy extinguished, its streets a graveyard of broken dreams. A wand lies snapped in two, its owner gone, its magic stilled. This is the price of war, a toll paid in lives and hope. Interlude, the weight of fear, the spark of courage. Let us pause here, as the dust settles and the night deepens, to drift into the hearts of those who endured these shadowed years. Fear was a relentless tide, washing over every home, every soul. Parents wove protective charms into their children's blankets, their hands trembling as they whispered incantations. Friends met in secret, their laughter brittle, their eyes searching for signs of betrayal. The imperious curse cast a pall of doubt. Was that neighbor's smile genuine, or a mask forced by an unseen hand? The dark mark's glow became a nightly specter, a reminder that safety was a memory. Yet amid this despair, courage took root like a stubborn flower in cracked stone. The Order of the Phoenix, though few in number, stood as a bulwark against the flood. Albus Dumbledore, with his quiet resolve and fathomless wisdom, was their lodestar, his belief in the power of love a shield against hate. Families like the Pruitts, bold and unyielding, fought with a ferocity born of conviction. The Longbottoms, steady and kind, faced torture rather than kafoo. Unsung heroes emerged too. A shopkeeper who hid refugees in her cellar, a child who carried messages through enemy lines. Their acts were small against the vastness of the war, but together they wove a thread of resistance that Voldemort could not sever. Picture a father now, rocking his infant daughter by a dim fire, his voice steady as he hums an old tune. Beyond the window the night presses close, but here, in this fragile circle, there is defiance and a promise of dawn. As the night stretches long and the stars hold their breath, we arrive at the end of his journey, a tale of return, ruin, and redemption for the world he sought to break. This is the story of his fall, a descent that began with a flicker of life in the dark and ended in the blazing light of defiance. Over these hours, we've traced his path from a lonely boy to a terror unbound, and now we'll witness how fate, love, and courage brought his reign to its close. So, settle deeper into your sanctuary, let the quiet of the night enfold you and allow this tale to carry you gently toward dreams. Out the Fall of the Dark Lord. Introduction: The Return from the Shadows. Before we walk the final battlefield, let us linger on the precipice of Voldemort's return. A moment when the wizarding world, basking in a fragile peace, was plunged back into shadow. For 13 years after his fall in 1981, he was a wraith, a whisper of malice haunting the forests of Albania. His body destroyed, his soul fractured by Horcruxes, he lingered in a half-life, neither dead nor truly alive, sustained by fragments he'd hidden across the land. The wizarding world believed him gone, his name fading into a cautionary tale told by firelight. But darkness, like a seed buried deep, waits only for the right moment to rise. The First Wizarding War had ended with Harry Potter's survival, a child marked by a lightning scar and a mother's sacrifice. Voldemort's curse, meant to kill the infant, had rebounded, tearing him from his form and scattering his Death Eaters. Some, like Lucius Malfoy, slipped back into society, their masks discarded, their loyalty feigned. Others, like Bellatrix Lestrange, rotted in Azkaban, their faith unshaken. The Ministry rebuilt, Hogwarts healed, and a generation grew up knowing Voldemort only as a shadow vanquished by a boy's destiny. Yet, beneath this calm, the threads of his return were already weaving. This final chapter spans his resurrection in 1995 to his defeat in 1998, a second wizarding war shorter but fiercer than the first, a storm that tested the soul of every witch and wizard. It's a tale of cunning and desperation, of battles fought in silence and in thunder, and of a prophecy fulfilled not by power alone, but by the quiet strength of those who stood against him. As we drift through these years, we'll uncover the secrets of his return, the cost of his ambition, and the moment his reign crumbled forever. Rest now and let the story unfold. Imagine a shadowed glade now, deep in Albania's wilds, where mist curls around gnarled trees. A faint hiss rises, a voice without form, plotting its return. This is where the end begins, a spark in the void. The resurrection, a body reclaimed. In the spring of 1995, Voldemort's return took shape in a graveyard in Little Hangleton, a place steeped in his past. For years he'd drifted, possessing snakes and small creatures, his strength ebbing with each fleeting host. His loyal servant, Peter Pettigrew, Wormtail, a traitor to the Potters, found him in 1994, guided by whispers and desperation. Together they hatched a plan to restore the Dark Lord, a ritual as grotesque as it was powerful, requiring 3 ingredients: bone, flesh, and blood. The setting was the Riddle family plot, where Tom Riddle Sr. lay buried beneath a weathered stone. Pettigrew, trembling yet resolute, carried Voldemort's frail form, a skeletal thing wrapped in robes, its red eyes glinting with malice. They were joined by Barty Crouch Jr., a Death Eater freed from Azkaban's grasp, who had spent the year manipulating the Tri-Wizard tournament to deliver Harry Potter into their hands. Harry, then 14, emerged from the maze victorious, clutching the Tri-Wizard cup, a portkey that whisked him to the graveyard. Sst. The ritual unfolded under a moonless sky. Pettigrew unearthed the Elder Riddle's grave, prying loose a bone of the father, unknowingly given, and dropped it into a simmering cauldron. He severed his own hand, a sacrifice of flesh of the servant, willingly given, his cry swallowed by the night. Then, with Harry bound and bleeding, he drew a dagger across the boy's arm. Blood of the enemy forcibly taken, and let crimson drops fall into the brew. The cauldron flared, a sickly green light erupting as Voldemort rose, his new body pale and serpentine, his face a mask of inhumanity. He tested his power, summoning his Death Eaters with a flick of his wand. The dark mark burned on their arms, and they apparated to his side, Lucius, Bellatrix, Avery, kneeling in awe and fear. Harry, defiant despite his terror, faced him, their wands clashing in a burst of golden light, priori incantatem, a rare echo of their shared core. Shadows of James and Lily emerged, shielding their son, and he escaped, leaving Voldemort enraged, but reborn. Thou Suan Hanal. See the graveyard now, its tombstones jagged against the dark, the air thick with the stench of dark magic. A figure rises, his robes billowing, his laughter a blade through the silence. It's a rebirth, a shadow made flesh once more. The Second Wizarding War, a world in chains. Voldemort's return in June 1995 marked the dawn of the Second Wizarding War, a conflict that swept through the wizarding world like a wildfire. Unlike the First War's creeping dread, this was a storm of swift, brutal strikes, a race to reclaim his dominion before resistance could solidify. The Ministry, led by Cornelius Fudge, denied his resurrection, clinging to a delusion of peace even as bodies piled up. Dumbledore, branded a liar, rallied the Order of the Phoenix, their numbers bolstered by veterans and new blood, Harry, Ron, Hermione among them. The war's early months were a dance of shadows. Voldemort moved in secret, rebuilding his forces, striking at key targets to sow chaos. Azkaban fell in January 1996, its Dementors defecting to his side, freeing Bellatrix and others in a tide of darkness. The Ministry stumbled, its horror stretched thin, while Death Eaters infiltrated its ranks, Augustus Rookwood whispering secrets from within. Muggleborns vanished, their homes marked by the Dark Mark, their fates a grim warning. In 1997, the tide turned decisive. Scrimgeour replaced Fudge, a lion of a man whose resolve came too late. Voldemort struck the Ministry itself, toppling it in a coup orchestrated by Pius Thicknesse, an imperialist puppet. Death Eaters seized power, their reign a vice of terror. Hogwarts, under Severus Snape's reluctant leadership, became a fortress of control, its students drilled in dark arts, its spirit bruised but unbroken. Harry, Ron, and Hermione fled, hunting Horcruxes across a land scarred by war, their trio a fragile hope against the encroaching night. Picture a London street now, its lights dimmed, its air heavy with fear. A green skull twists above, its serpent tongue flickering. The world holds its breath, waiting for the next blow. The Battle of Hogwarts, the final stand. The war's climax came on May 2nd, 1998, at Hogwarts, a battle that would end Voldemort's reign. Harry, having destroyed most Horcruxes, returned to face his destiny, the prophecy's weight a quiet pulse in his chest. Voldemort, sensing victory, besieged the castle with an army, Death Eaters, giants, Dementors, spiders from the Forbidden Forest, a tide of darkness against its ancient walls. The defense was a tapestry of courage. McGonagall led the teachers, transfiguring statues into warriors, her voice steady as stone. Students, Gryffindors, Ravenclaws, Hufflepuffs, even Slytherins, stood with wands raised, their youth a shield against despair. The Order fought beside them, Remus Lupin, Tonks, Kingsley, while the Weasleys formed a fiery core, Molly's love a blade of its own. Spells lit the night, red, green, gold, crashing like waves against the castle's towers. Voldemort's forces breached the gates, their fury a relentless storm. Fred Weasley fell to an explosion, his laughter silenced. Lupin and Tonks died together, hands clasped in the rubble. Harry, seeking the final Horcrux, Nagini, watched Snape's death in the Shrieking Shack, his memories revealing a truth. Harry himself was a Horcrux, a fragment of Voldemort's soul lodged within him since that night in Godric's Hollow. And in the Forbidden Forest, Harry faced Voldemort alone, the Resurrection Stone summoning his loved ones. James, Lily, Sirius, Remus, for a final farewell. "You've been so brave," Lily whispered, and he let the killing curse strike, dying to destroy the soul within. At King's Cross, a vision of peace, Dumbledore offered choice. return or move on. Harry chose life, waking to feign death as Voldemort paraded his body before Hogwarts. The battle's final act unfolded in the Great Hall. Neville Longbottom, wielding the sword of Gryffindor, slew Nagini, the last Horcrux, his courage a spark that reignited hope. Harry rose, confronting Voldemort as the castle's defenders rallied. Their wands clashed, the Elder Wand won by Harry through Draco's disarming, refusing its master. Voldemort's curse rebounded once more, his body crumpling to the floor, his red eyes dimming forever. See the hall now, its banners tattered, its tables strewn with dust and tears. A figure lies still, his reign ended, as sunlight creeps through broken windows. It's a dawn hard won, a silence that sings of peace. Conclusion: a legacy in ashes. With Voldemort's fall, the wizarding world exhaled, a breath held for decades released at last. The Second War ended, its cost etched in every face, families rebuilt, scars borne with pride, a generation tempered by fire. Harry, Ron, and Hermione emerged not as conquerors, but as survivors, their bond a quiet testament to love's endurance. Hogwarts rose anew, its stones whispering of those who fought, its halls filled with laughter once more. Voldemort's legacy was a shadow dispelled, his Horcruxes destroyed, his Death Eaters scattered, some to Azkaban, others to exile. His name became a lesson, not a curse. The prophecy fulfilled, neither can live while the other survives, proved love's triumph over hate, Lily's sacrifice a light that outlasted his darkness. As years passed, the wizarding world healed. Teddy Lupin grew without parents, but with love, Albus Severus Potter bore names of redemption, and peace settled like dew on a new dawn. Voldemort, the boy who feared death, found it in the end, a mortal end for an immortal dream. Rest now, dear listener, in this stillness. Picture a castle aglow, its towers reaching for a sky unmarred by fear. Voldemort's tale is done, his shadows faded, and the night is yours. Sleep well, and may your dreams be soft and bright.